For the past 2 years, I've literally tried optimizing absolutely everything, thinking it would give me the validation I've been craving since childhood. Physically, it was just being so obsessed with the gym in terms of, my health, my fitness, aesthetics, nutrition, looks maxing, chasing aesthetics, trying absolutely every diet on the planet, doing 100-hour fast. Mentally, it was optimizing for the discipline, time blocked, regimented routines, the Google calendars, the David Goggins type mentality. More recently, it's with content creation, it's just fixating so much on how I can optimize every piece of content for growth and engagement and portraying myself in this particular manner. And spiritually, in terms of, like manifestation, doing the visualizations, the affirmation, hundreds and hours of just journaling and self-reflection, reading the entire Bible. So all of these things I was trying to optimize under the umbrella of just wanting to become an entirely new person, right? Unlock a new identity for myself, detach from my old ways and step into alignment with the man that I so desperately wanted to become early on. Today especially, I just woke up at like 3-4 in the morning. It felt like God airdropped me the answers that I've been searching for this entire time, relative to this 2-year journey I've been on. Clarity just hit me like an absolute truck. Because now that I've just been optimizing this entire time, right? I preach this whole thing of, mind, body, soul alignment, and how once you align these 3 things, that is effectively how you unlock a new identity for yourself. In reality, I haven't even been embodying alignment. I've just been so focused on optimized execution. There's such a difference between execution and embodiment, right? Doing the things versus actually being the person. It's been this entire morning where I've just been reflecting because I feel as though God has finally handed me the solution that I've been searching for all this time. And so I felt compelled to just come on here and just document, the raw emotions, right? Revelation that I've experienced early today relative to why, even though I was optimizing all of these areas of my life, right? One thing I couldn't optimize was identity. So even beyond just wanting this video to serve as, documentation for myself to be able to look back on and reflect on my own journey, man. It's above all else, I want this to serve as reinforcement that, you can try and just optimize every area of your life. You can just be doing everything on paper, right? Doing X, Y, and Z, the routines, the habits, all of it. Still not fully be acting in alignment with that highest version of yourself and who God has genuinely called you to become. Genuinely dedicate this video to the Most High, man. Like, I'm telling you, I'm so, I needed to get this video out. Like, look at this. I have a piece of steak sitting in front of me that is just waiting to be devoured once I finish recording this video. Right? Forcing myself to get this video out so that I can go have this steak, have some eggs, some avocado, right? Throw up the meal after I finish recording this. But dude, I have this piece of steak in front of me as just almost like motivation, right? It's how fed up I am with optimization, right? Because this is just pure intuition, me just putting a piece of steak in front of me, man. But forget that, that's not why you're here. I'm just gonna dive right into, just everything I feel that God has conveyed within me, throughout this entire day. For context, and I'm gonna keep it brief because otherwise I'd just be yapping forever, but very young age, I always had these dependency issues to where I needed all these external factors for me to feel fulfilled and validated internally. Elementary to middle school, it was largely being so dependent on my parents, which, obviously as a child, it's like to rely on your parents in that way. But it was so excessive to the point where even when I was in middle school, it's like my parents dictated almost everything about me in terms of the things I'd wear, how I do my hair, right? They would always make me gel my hair, and I just hated that shit. Absolutely hated it. They had such a huge role within just my overall self-image and self-worth, and how if I didn't live up to their standards and expectation, I was doing it wrong, right? That wasn't how I was supposed to live. I was just supposed to live exactly how they wanted me to. Of course, when I'm that young, I'm not really able to comprehend that and, have that awareness. So it kind of just happened. It wasn't until the beginning of high school where that dependency changed, when I got into my first ever relationship. I was able to experience this validation, not from my parents, but from, somebody that actually saw me for who I was, right? I didn't have all of these standards and expectations like my parents did, but they just wanted me for me. Result, I became super attached and dependent on that relationship now, instead of, deriving that self-worth from, just living up to my parents' standards. Such a fulfilling period of my life, because it genuinely felt like I could just be myself, that I didn't have to optimize or perform in these certain ways that, my parents wanted me, and that I could just project my real authentic self and feel validated for that. The entirety of, high school and that relationship, it just felt like genuinely the best period of my life up until that point. But, you probably saw where this was going. It wasn't until my last year of high school where, just so many things happened, man. It was just a shit show, right? It was just a roller coaster of just emotions, events. Basically, that relationship ended right before I was about to graduate high school. And as a result, just my entire identity went in shambles, right? Losing somebody after you've been together for 2 years, the highs and lows, and going through all of these things together, showing them your true colors, right? Being vulnerable, telling them about your internal battles, your struggles. So difficult for me to comprehend that, the validation that I once received, all of a sudden it was just gone. So how this ties into the whole optimization thing was that it made me realize that if I couldn't experience that validation from other people, right, in terms of, my parents, my girlfriend at the time, logically I thought to myself, okay, I have to just turn to myself. Mind, this was, late 2023, early 2024 that we're talking. And so it was especially around this time where that desire to just become the best version of myself possible really came into fruition, right? Especially after that breakup. It was at this point where, in the absence of validation from others, I turned towards self-mastery and optimization as a crutch to now, begin facilitating for that validation of my own accord, right? And not having to live up to other people's standards and expectations, because, within that relationship, it eventually got to that point where, going against who I genuinely was, and I started becoming less of who I genuinely was. I figured that the only way I would be able to become more of myself was if I just optimizing every aspect of my being possible to unlock that new version of myself, right? To create that new identity for myself, because I just wanted to detach from my old ways so badly after that breakup, man. So relative to, that history of external validation, when, started with my parents, and then with the relationship, and then, with, optimization and pursuing self-mastery, that's essentially what it's been over the past 2 years, relative to, as I mentioned at the beginning, just trying to optimize every area of my life in pursuit of that new identity. After just sitting in my bed at, like 3, 4 in the morning, just reflecting and replaying all of these, events within my life from childhood up until now, the journey that it's been, I realized that especially over the past years, I've confused optimization with alignment. That if I just maxed out my mind and my body relative to, doubling down, injecting myself within health and fitness and self-improvement, that was what would deliver me out of my old ways and allowing me to embody that new version of myself. The thing is, when I was optimizing all of these things, right, not even just my mind and body, but also, my spirituality, as I mentioned, relative to, trying all these manifestation techniques, thinking that if I read the Bible every single day, I'd be, godly righteous, man. The reality was, no matter how dialed in my habits were, my routine was, my physique was, when my ego tried to convince me relative to, feeling aligned through all of these external metrics of success. Throughout the entire process, I was always neglecting my soul, right? I was failing to heal the inner wound, thinking that if I pursued all of these external things, it would fill that void that was within me, relative to just wanting to feel accepted and validated for who I was. Fortunately, I also came to the realization that even within this current 365-day protocol that I'm doing, right, 365 aligned, it's been so much more about optimization than actual alignment, right? It might as well be called 365 optimized. Last video, where I basically broke down all the things that I'm doing across, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual, doing these all-day fasts where I only eat early in the morning and I only eat at night. And it's like, bro, it's like fasting is meant to be a thing of surrendering towards God, and I'm just using it as this, I'm just using it as this optimization tactic to make myself more productive. If I eat less, then, my diet will figure itself out. And especially what I've been doing for my spiritual health, it just feels like I'm trying to force these habits, and I'm just treating it like a checklist where you're like, oh yeah, spend quality time with my parents. Like that shouldn't even be something that I'm like actively like tracking. That should just go without saying, right? Things like, reading the Bible, going out on adventures, creating new experiences for myself. I shouldn't like forcing myself to like do these things within every day. Like sometimes it's, where should I go today for my micro adventure? Like what? The thing is, within all of this, I'm not trying to say optimization is evil, right? It's not. It's your heart posture that is everything relative to executing upon all of these optimization tactics. My heart posture has just been misaligned, operating from a place of weakness, fear, of insecurity relative to all of this validation seeking I was doing within thinking I could optimize my way into this new identity and actually feeling fulfilled internally through all of these external tactics. I realize now in my whole life I've just been seeking and craving that validation, man, and I've just been turning to absolutely everything except the divinity that exists within me, God himself. Trying to optimize for everything except him. It's such a hard pill to swallow when, reflecting on these past 2 years, I just realized I've just been trying to optimize my way into that version of myself. And it's why I've accepted now that I truly have been operating from a misaligned, broken foundation all this time, right? After that relationship ended, I've just been this half aligned, half misaligned man. I've externally aligned towards that version of myself, right? I'm in the best shape of my life before. I've read the books, right? I've realized the routines. I've consumed all of the self-help content. Externally, I was aligned. But internally, I've been misaligned this entire time because I failed to actually address the root cause of just my overall lifelong misalignment. Being able to satisfy what my soul and heart have been hungry for, what they've been craving for this entire time, instead just focusing on what my mind, what my ego will tell me I should, pursue and focus on. Through this video, I want to right here, right now, hold myself accountable and commit myself to seeking, shifting from being so dependent on optimization, false idea of self-mastery relative to, pursuing it inauthentically as I have been doing. Instead, seeking that validation from within, right? From here and not from here. That's the thing. I've convinced myself that, yeah, I'm getting validation from myself, but it's through this lens of, self-exaltation, self-righteousness, almost like self-worship, deriving my self-worth from how optimized I can be, instead of actually seeking that validation from him, right? From the Most High, from God himself. Shifting my focus to the creator and not his creations relative to all of these optimization tactics and areas that I could optimize within my life. It made me realize that within 365 aligned, huge changes need to be made relative to just all of these insight, profound amount of clarity that I've received from the Lord himself relative to how it is that I must be operating moving forward to truly act in alignment with that 2.0 version of myself. I mentioned, right, this is only within today that I've come to all this intuitive inner wisdom. As of recording this, I just feel as though I just need to simplify the protocol down to how I would operate, how I would live if I didn't feel this need to be, so optimized to feel validated, right? How would I live if the whole idea of optimization itself just didn't exist? As I mentioned, optimization is not evil. It's the heart posture you have within, executing, striving to be this optimized guy. Because that's what's been essentially just fueling my self-worth, right? Fueling that validation within me. It just feels as though I have to strip this whole entire protocol down to just the core elements. Bare naked truth relative to the things that actually make me feel aligned mentally, physically, and spiritually. The dome, it's like, not doing this all day fasting thing where I'm like only eating in the AM and only eating late at night, but just actually approaching it in the manner that I did before I started obsessing over like fasting and my diet. Simply just eating food that I loved, right? Food that my parents were making me, consistent 3 meals a day, maybe having an extra one here and there, but just not even really obsessing over like meal timings, metabolism, and all of the things that geared me towards telling myself and convincing myself, yeah, bro, you gotta do this all day fasting thing because, if you only eat in the AM and the PM, then your circadian rhythm will be dialed in. And get out of here, man. So it really comes down to just refining this protocol in a way to where I'm not trying to optimize or force alignment, right? Because you just simply can't, right? You can't force an identity shift. You can't force your way into that highest version of yourself. And I can't believe it's only now that I'm beginning to realize that, man. Main takeaway for, just being so obsessed with optimization and thinking that that is what allow you to feel fulfilled and validated internally, right? If you just try and optimize all of these external aspects of your being, you can't. Instead, shift your focus on something greater than yourself, right? It was more so aligning that desire towards, leveling up mentally, physically, and spiritually in a more selfless manner, committing yourself to that higher power, that higher purpose. As I mentioned, for me, it's really just turning towards God, turning towards the divinity within me. Only through a strong spiritual internal foundation that true identity change can occur, that you can actually heal those deep inner wounds that you may be experiencing from childhood in the same way that I've come to realize within myself. On a personal note, I just want to embrace, the raw documentation relative to speaking on these things, these insights and revelations that I'm coming to, the things that I'm struggling with, things that I'm learning, what I'm coming to understand about myself and just about this whole philosophy of alignment of 2.0. It was through optimization that I felt like I had already arrived, right? It felt like I was already that 2.0 version of myself, but I realized this entire time I was just externally aligned. I was never internally aligned. I've just been internally misaligned. Within 365 aligned, it's coming not just externally aligned, but also internally aligned. And naturally, you can only truly become externally aligned through first addressing those internal wounds, right? Those wounds that have just been there for years and years, just suppressed, trapped under all of these, optimization techniques and, these external pursuits. So that's what I truly want these videos and this channel overall to finding the raw, authentic journey towards real self-mastery, towards real alignment, towards real identity change, towards truly stepping into alignment with that highest version of myself, man. Resonated at all. I appreciate you for actually sticking through and watching this entire thing, just watching me rant about, my struggles with optimization and how I thought it was just this thing that would make me feel validated, right? If I couldn't get that validation from others, then I figured that, yeah, this is the thing that would actually deliver me towards, my desired reality. I feel like this is something that, so many young men experience within that pursuit of self-mastery, thinking that if they just chase all of these features and rack up all of these, statistics and 1% increases in terms of their development, that is what will give them that self-worth, right? But, as God has signaled to me within this day, man, it's like you can't optimize your way into a new identity, man. You just simply can't. And it really is just documenting the whole process of, detaching myself from this obsession with optimization and thinking that that is what will fulfill me, and instead shifting my focus, right? Fixating my eyes on the creator and not his creations. Truly, man, God compelled me to get this video out there. So when he calls, I have no choice but to answer, man. I have no choice but to lean in and embrace my intuition, because that is truly where I should be operating from, not within these optimization tactics, but from here, right? Living from heart and soul above all else. Thus, I think the plane has landed relative to this video, isn't it at all relative to the whole, optimization thing, seeking validation from that, initially maybe seeking validation from others, just seeking validation anywhere except from here. I really appreciate hearing anyone else's experiences with this as well, because I just can't help but feel like this isn't just me, right? There's so many other young men out there are experiencing this, where it's like they have this desire to, this desire for self-mastery, for a new identity, to become that best self, but they're doing it for the wrong reasons and they don't even realize it. I'm just gonna stay here documenting the raw journey towards a new identity, towards my 2.0 self, showing the highs and lows, the wins, the losses, the struggles, the success, all of it. Once again, thank you. Truly means the world for those who actually made it this far, and I just wish you the best within your own pursuit of self-mastery, within striving to become that best version of yourself. Nonetheless, stay on, y'all. I earned that, man. I earned that. Steak, avocado, eggs under, kimchi, Brussels sprouts. Feast time, baby.